Euphoria is possibly the most visually striking show in recent years. Not only is the lighting stunning, but the use of colour and movement just complements the story in such a unique way and makes the show so enchanting to watch. So this is going to be a video looking at the cinematography of Season 1, and once Season 2 ends, I'll probably do that one too, as by the sounds of it, the cinematography has taken a very different but very intriguing route. Keep in mind that even though Marcell Rev is in the title, 3 other cinematographers also worked on Season 1, including Drew Daniels, Adam Newport-Bearer and Andrei Chamtov. But as Rev shot the first 4 episodes and therefore established the atmosphere for the show, I have him in the title. In today's video, I'll be looking at what equipment Marcell Rev used, his use of lighting and movement, as well as how he utilised composition. As always, let's start by looking at the equipment used. Rev went with the Alexa 65 paired with the DNA lenses. However, some scenes were shot on the Arriflex 416 and the special episodes were shot on the Arricam LT, but there's minimal information about their use of film apart from Season 2 being shot on Ektachrome. The Alexa 65 is an incredible camera though. It has an enormous sensor and is from Arri, so the colour size is some of the best on the market. Onto the DNA primes, these are lenses made for the 65. They are absolutely full of character, give an almost vintage look to the image, and have a low t-stop, making them perfect for Euphoria. Let's keep this section short though, because there is just so much to talk about when it comes to lighting, movement and composition. I can't remember the last time I saw lighting play a character in a show. Sure, we often see the camera play a character like in Succession, but the lighting throughout Euphoria is unlike anything else on TV at the moment. It's not only full of colour, but it moves, which is extremely unusual, especially when used to the extent it is in this. When talking about choosing the colour palette for the show, Rev said, "It has to be colourful in a way, I think, to feel that elevation, but we didn't want it to go like rainbow colours or with no real system in it. So most of the time we're using primary colours and I'm relying a lot on the orange-blue colour contrast, which is a really basic one." So let's talk about the party scenes, as these are obviously going to be the scenes with the most colour throughout. A lot of the time we're going monochromatic with the colours, which pretty much means it's all one colour with very little variation. It really catches you off guard, as we often go from a normal use of colour to being bombarded with bright blues and pinks. Now this is usually the point in the video where I look at what colour means in cinematography, but blue is often associated with calmness and isolation, which I don't think could be further from what's happening in these scenes. Now the other really prominent colour is obviously purple, and the technical term for this colour scheme would be analogous. Unlike blue however, we can associate purple with what you usually would in cinematography, as it's often associated with fantasy and mystical themes, but most importantly, the ominous atmosphere it creates. So it's not really based on realism. We called it emotional realism, that's more based in the character's emotions and not how the world surrounding them really looks. Talking more about the actual lighting though, it tends to be really bright, which for a show with such a dark subject matter is surprising, but it's pulled off in an incredible way. Now there's a lot of backlighting throughout, and not only is that a great way to create depth in a shot, but it also makes us focus on the character. All of this lighting is often really soft though, even when there's a harsh difference between the background and the foreground, or even mixing colours on the subject's face, and it just manages to create this really surreal atmosphere, almost dreamlike. I will also add that it's killing me to not talk about that one shot in the first episode of Season 2. For camera movements, we really wanted it to have a certain energy that ties the different storylines together, so I would say the camera movement is the glue in the show that glues it together. So on a rewatch of the show, one of the main things I realised was how we would flow through scenes. It didn't feel as though we were intruding on the characters' lives, but to me it did feel like we were with them in the scene, occasionally, as there are countless shots throughout where we are spinning on a crane or simply static. The detective roof scene is quite possibly my favourite in the entire show, because not only is it a nice and welcoming change in the cinematography style, but it's also just incredibly fun, and I would easily watch a spin-off of just Rio and Lexi solving crime. But anyway, the use of a more stable camera is prominent, it's a more serious, in a way, scene, and the movement demonstrates that. We stay more static throughout conversation, but we also switch to handheld when they are close to cracking the case. But what really separates this scene from the rest of the show is the fact that it's the scene shot on film, and I'm 99% sure of that.
Rue, are you pouring coffee in the water filter?
Yes, I am.
Instead of water?
Yes, I am.
Now, I can't just skip over the R.lum.r shot of Nate. It's one of the most memorable from the entire show, and it's because of how unique it is, in the way that it draws your attention and it's not often used. Shooting a scene like this is simple enough though, and if you are interested in a more in-depth breakdown, then I'll link my video on R.lum.r in the top right corner and description below. Simply put though, the set's designers created two identical rooms, placed both the actors opposite each other, and then the DP instructed the camera to move through the frame of the mirror. Overall, the lighting and movement in this show almost makes us feel as though we're in a dream, then without warning, we are struck down with a sense of realism. We go from this surreal setting with bright lights and free-flowing movement to suddenly a clear setting where we feel safer, but also a bit jarred, and whether he uses a bright light or not doesn't matter. The fact that Rev can make us feel that stark difference just by movement and light placement is incredible, but it also wouldn't be the same without his use of composition.
I'm Bob Ross, the painter from PBS.
To start, let's talk about all of this centre framing, because whilst it's been making a bit of a comeback in recent cinematography, it's still not that widely used to this extent. So what does the use of centre framing actually mean, and what does it use to symbolise? Well, there's a list of things, but in Euphoria, mainly for impact, immersion and duality, which is probably the most recognisable use of it. The balanced frame is something that you don't really think a lot of when you are watching something, and that's exactly why it's important. The characters are mostly equal in Euphoria. Nate is a bit of an outlier and is evidently a more powerful presence in a shot, not just because of his height either, even though that plays a huge part. But the equality in the frames of Rue and Jules show a balance in their characters. There's a symmetry about it that just makes us feel a bit more comfortable, but this is only when they are close. As the season moves forward, we start to feel more and more uncomfortable with their presence together, and not only is that down to the incredible acting, but also the composition. Before we finish, we really need to talk about the use of the bird's eye view and just high angles in general. Now, the use of the bird's eye view is very prominent throughout Euphoria, and whether we are just looking at Rue on a bed or establishing the location, it's still making her feel small and almost powerless. And we don't just see this when she is relapsing, as we also see it when she is in a state of euphoria.
Unless it's human trafficking. I don't fuck with human trafficking. I'm not human trafficking.
Yeah, us neither.
Ultimately, this is a very stylised but very real show, and the aura that Marcell Rev has created is simply breathtaking. He's managed to create this hypnagogic atmosphere just through lighting, movement and composition. I will also say that even though I'm only 2 episodes into season 2, the cinematography has blown me away, so look out for part 2 to this video in mid to late March. I hope you enjoyed this video looking at the cinematography of Euphoria. If you have a film or TV show that you would like to see me analyse, then leave a comment down below. If you found it informative, a like is appreciated, and if you would like to see more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.